Tonight, I am going to do something I have never, ever done. I'm going to allow you to peer into the most private of thoughts, of ideas, of things that I just thought about. And to prove that to you tonight, I brought in my personal journal. And just to give you an idea of what is written in this journal, first, I will show you the contents. There's absolutely nothing. It is blank. But does that mean I have not lived a full 40 years? Most of us go through life just living life, moment to moment. I would say special moments with children and your spouse and friends. Perhaps special moments on the 5 freeway that we remember all the way home, or perhaps we remember all the way to bedtime. And we don't record those moments. We should record these moments. They are special moments. But here's the catch. The moments are so special, and you're pretty much into the conversation, like Jose mentioned earlier. You're into the moment that you're not going to say, stop, let me write that down. We don't do that. And it's difficult to remember 10, 15 minutes after exactly what was so funny, a special moment. I'm not advocating not using journals. You should. I have this one. I am waiting till the new year, just like maybe perhaps all of you are waiting till the new year to begin certain programs. I've heard that the 2 best-selling books in bookstores are cookbooks and diet books. One tells you, the cookbooks tell you how to cook a perfect meal, and then the diet books tell you exactly what to avoid so that you don't get plump. Well, I want to take you through a small journey. It's a journey of really an examined, or a life examined, which happens to be my life. We have a tendency as people, for me, especially as a family man, as a husband, as a person who contributes, and I want to continue contributing. We tend to look back. What did I do last year? Perhaps, what did I do the last 5 years, or the last 10 years? Let's go further back. What did I do the last 20 years? What have I done since high school, and perhaps even further back? Now, beginning in my childhood, I didn't have a rough childhood. I was going through school. I really didn't. Some of you did. I envy you. I'm getting the strange looks. However, I can tell you that the schools that I went to, a lot of them were in Southeast Los Angeles. But I wouldn't say that the schools I went to were dangerous just because we had our own corner, or just because we had an obituary column in our school paper. They were not dangerous schools. They were pretty much good schools. I got an education. In case you're wondering what school district that was LAUSD. In fact, my education, I really value it so much that the first opportunity I had in English class, when my teacher was asking all the students to spell certain names of the states, when she said, "Carlos, spell Mississippi," and I raised my hand, "The river or the state?" I wasn't too bright, I would say, in that one opportunity. And what I can tell you is that there were other students who were surpassing me. A lot of them were transcendent as far as their grades was concerned. I was lagging behind, way behind in some cases, and while the top students were drinking at the fountain of knowledge, all I was doing was just gargling, because I was picking up nothing. Really, from school, I was an average student. However, I've had a fantastic 40 years. Now, going from childhood, that includes the teenagers, that is just too much to cover. I'm not going to touch that tonight. But going on to marriage, going on to meeting my wife, and beginning a family, and all the stuff that goes with it. And I remember once, we were in counseling one time, and my wife Margot got up to use the ladies' room, and the counselor noticed that I was being a little critical. He said, "Well, wait a minute, stop right there." He says, remember, as you are beginning to criticize your wife for her faults, that perhaps those same faults could have prevented her from finding a better husband. Point. We'll take him. That's the time when I stopped telling jokes. For example, there was one joke that I really used to like telling people. Is how many men does it take to open a beer bottle? None. It should be opened when she brings it to you. I'm sorry. But ever since that counseling session, I stopped telling those jokes. Now, for marriage, obviously, we had children, and some of you know in this room that we had 4 children. And like some people would say nowadays, we've been busy. But children are so nice. They bring you so much stories. They bring you such happiness in life. They also teach you a lot about life. And that's another area in life where you begin to examine yourself and you say, well, why is this kid cussing? And it's perhaps because I'm cussing. Or why does this kid have that certain habit? It's because you probably have that certain habit. And I found a nice quote for children. And really because a lot of you know about my religious background, the nice quote I found about children is that a baby is God's way of letting us know that the world should go on. And I have 4 wonderful kids to prove it. But I've also learned that insanity is hereditary. You get it from your kids. It is true. I am a case. Are there any psychologists in the room? I am free to be examined in that regard, and I will give you probably plenty of proof. If you're working on a PhD, I can be your case. So please, we can talk after the meeting. I've also learned a few other things. And looking back and you're relating your childhood to your kids and the history, I learned from actually another historian. He says, before you go on bragging that your ancestors were on the Mayflower, just remember that back then, the immigration laws were so strict. Which reminds perhaps a lot of us that way back when, we probably have a lot of nuts in our family trees that perhaps have affected the outcomes of our families now. But now, towards the end now, I'm just enjoying life really with my wife and with my children. And a very special thing that we have together is obviously this group of people is Toastmasters and what we're doing together. It's not her on her side and me on my side. And to really sum up in a life examined, is I'm not finished. I'm not finished. I examine my days. I examine my relationship with my children, with my wife, with friends, to give touch-ups, to do tune-ups. I can do this better. I can say that better. I can be more available to this person. And children really are what I'll leave behind. And it's one thing that many of us here treasure in life. And really, all I'm asking you to do is really just examine your lives for this new coming year. Examine them closely and make some changes that are required perhaps, so that at the end you pass on a legacy that many people remember. Madam Toastmaster.